Hey, welcome back. I'm Lowell. I'm from Elgray Photography.
I'm Jerry with Stone Fences Stores.
And you're with Behind the Label, and this is our little branch project. And what's it called?
Bourbon 101.
Where you learn all the basics about bourbon.
It is, and I'm still learning them. So.
I'm not even in kindergarten yet.
So this is our, pre-K level stuff. So our last episode, we had fun with Buffalo Trace products, talking about how 5 different products, which they have more, are made from the same mash bill.
Same exact mash bill, but definitely taste distinctively different.
They do, and their age depends on what type of warehouse, where the warehouse is located, where the product is located in the warehouse. Will make that big a difference. How long it's aged,
right?
All that. So this week on this one, we're actually going to talk about finishing, which is kind of a touchy
for me,
subject.
I've asked this multiple times. Like I don't know if you get a chance to watch our Not All Whiskey is Bourbon series. We kind of go through the list of what has to basically happen to make it a bourbon. And on the very end there is, it can't be colored, it can't be flavored.
Artificially, that's
Artificially.
Right. All from the barrel.
Yeah, it'll all be from the barrel. But what we're looking at today is something called finishing, which does impart a different flavor, but it's not considered artificially flavored.
And another rule of bourbon is that it has to be, put in a new charred oak container. So that's another rule. So when we talk about finishing, is that allowed? It is today.
Right now it is. It's actually, we've actually talked to several people kind of through interviews and kind of impromptu question sessions about that, and we've gotten a few different answers, but also we've gotten a lot of, hey, it's allowed right now, and we don't really know exactly where it's going. As a matter of fact, our last interview, he's actually an attorney. And he was like, well, I don't know. Right now it's legal and allowed, and it may change. So
it may change.
So that may be something that changes.
So if you see Kentucky Straight Bourbon, sometimes it'll say aged, sometimes it'll say finished. A lot of sherry casks, a lot of wine casks, port, that kind of stuff. So we'll start out today on this and actually go straight with our normal Woodford Reserve Distiller Select.
And all of these bottles that you're seeing here are all from Woodford Reserve.
They are.
And don't get the impression that we're downing finishing or because these are all good. They're all delicious.
They're all the same bourbon.
They're all the same. Basically, you're right. They're all the same bourbon. Same bourbon. They're just finished differently.
Yeah. So this one is, I have to look up their mash bill. So it's a 90 proof, 90.4. It's 72% corn, 18% rye, and 10% malted barley.
So
all the same.
Pretty standard as far as bourbon goes. Pretty standard mash bill.
Yeah,
but it is different from the wheated bourbon. So that's kind of what was the distinguished factor. So right now we're continuing to drink a little Woodford Reserve. I'm sure most everybody out there has had Woodford Reserve.
I would think so.
If you've ever drank bourbon, it's probably on the top 3. Woodford Reserve, Buffalo Trace, and probably something Maker's Mark. I would think that would be the top.
Jim
3.
Beam.
Yeah, Jim Beam. That's right. Yeah, that's right. For some reason, I always kind of leave that one out of my brain. All right.
Yeah.
So let's finish this one.
Yep. Now the next one is not necessarily about finish. I just wanted you to kind of try it. This is actually, the next one is one of those famous barrel picks that's been happening here lately.
Now describe what do you mean by a barrel pick? Because
well, this one is not necessarily a barrel. This is kind of just some, because this is not a single barrel. A lot of barrel picks now are single barrel. People go and, liquor stores go and to, like Four Roses or Woodford Reserve, and they'll go in and they'll choose from 5 or 6 different barrels, one that they like.
Yeah, and when you say one, they actually purchase the entire barrel.
They purchase the whole barrel.
Now you have to, I assume, have a liquor license to be able to do that, or can the individual go do that?
Well, you need some kind of license, yes. If you're going to sell it, yeah.
No. I'm saying, like, say if an individual, for instance, you can go to a liquor store and buy this. Could you go to a sourcing place? I'm not sure who you would buy that off of, but as an individual, and say, I'm not going to resell this. I'm basically just going to drink it myself.
Yeah,
or serve it at parties or whatever.
You can. Like Maker's Mark has the Ambassador Club, where so many people getting together to buy one barrel, and then when that barrel becomes aged, they get to go year after year and kind of test it, taste it, and when it comes to age,
so they buy the barrel, but it stays at the warehouse.
Yeah, and they bottle it for them and everything. So.
Okay, so they don't actually bring an entire, like a wooden barrel.
No, most of the time they'll bottle it for them. So like this one, It's you know, they'll go ahead and bottle it.
Okay.
They'll put a special sticker on it, like this is Total Wine's barrel pick. If you're gonna try it.
I'll give it a try. Yeah, so I was under the impression when you say people go and basically do barrel picks, that they're literally having like a 600-pound barrel of whiskey delivered to their house.
Not usually. Not usually. Usually they're picking the barrel and they'll have it bottled there.
Okay.
Most of the time, but there's some places that will actually put their own label and everything on.
Well, I know when we visited Jeff Mattingly, that's kind of was the.
Yeah.
But now he's in a little bit. You know, it's not like he's using it for his own purposes. He actually sells it, bottles it, and sells it. But it was kind of interesting to see his facility there, where you saw a bunch of barrels that he had personally picked out himself, and kind of either does it as single barrels or blends it together. Most often blends it. But
Yeah. So this first one is probably hundreds of barrels to make this. This one is probably, it's a smaller amount of barrels.
And this is because, like you said, Total
Wine.
Total Wine, which is a local liquor store, basically went and hand-picked out these barrels, or is it one barrel?
No, not one barrel. It's a combination of barrels.
It's a combination of barrels.
Yeah, but it's less barrels to make that.
But they picked it out themselves and said, we like this combination.
Yeah. This would be considered more of a small batch than this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, smaller amount. It's funny too, the bottle sizes are different.
Well, I noticed. I thought this one was a little bit taller at
It
first.
is.
Yeah.
It is.
It's actually a little bit wider as well. So this is. Well, how much is in here?
I don't think it's a 750.
It looks bigger than a 750. Yes, it's 1 liter.
Okay.
So that's 1,000 milliliters.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you can hear the music, we've been kind of playing along. Do you know who this is?
No.
This is Chris Knight. If you're into good music, check out Chris Knight. He's from Slaughters, Kentucky.
Okay.
So lots of these great both bluegrass, kind of bluesy, country, true, you know, not bro country, but actual good music.
Good country.
Good country. Yeah, I know there's a lot of people that kind of say, oh, there's such thing as good country, but there is. There's it's a very authentic American music, same way as authentic American bourbon. So we like both of those, and they kind of complement each other. So if you're really into bourbon, 95% of that's made in Kentucky. If you're into bluegrass and really good country, I'd say 95% of that's made in Kentucky as well.
It is.
So I want to give this a try.
Yeah. So this is the Total Wine pick. So we're still talking about their basic recipe.
Yeah, but if you'll notice, I don't know if you can see that through the camera, this is just a little bit darker. Now some of that may be from the thickness of the bottle, maybe just a little bit, but I think that it's a little bit darker.
Yeah, because this is about 6 years. They don't give any age statement on these, so
it may be.
It could be a little older, but it's probably about the same. But so we're not really into finishing yet. We're just kind of talking about a barrel pick. I mean, like I said, every liquor store has these.
That's good. They did a good job with picking.
Did they? Okay, that's good.
Because you're getting all the good flavors of Woodford Reserve, but just deeper. Yeah, that definitely has a much more. I'm not sure what the correct term would be. Bold, wider, broader taste spectrum. Yeah.
Okay. So when we talk about finishing, we're talking about not the first barrel. We're talking about a second barrel. So when you
now, when you say second barrel, let's clarify. You're not mixing a barrel with another barrel. You're actually taking it out of the first barrel.
First barrel.
And putting it into a different barrel.
Second barrel.
Okay.
And there's different things. Sometimes you may not necessarily be putting. It may be an empty barrel of bourbon. And some places like Maker's Mark, you know, you had Maker's Mark 46. They emptied that barrel of Maker's Mark. They put those 46 French seared staves in it. And then they put in a new batch of Maker's Mark, and they age it longer. So this is kind of a secondary finishing. When you think about it, it's Maker's 46. So there's a lot of Angel Envy, you know, port wine, sherry casks, they're very popular. So it's, you know.
But now the reason that doesn't disqualify it as being bourbon is because originally when that went into a barrel, it went into a brand new charred oak barrel basically as White Dog, and that made it bourbon. So it was birthed as bourbon.
You have to look at the way it's set on the label. It will say, you know, a lot of them will say Kentucky Straight Bourbon, finished in, you know, port wine cask or something like that, sherry cask or, you know. So that's kind of look at it like that. So it's bourbon, and then they say finished in something else. So it's a secondary barrel when they talk about finishing.
Now I know and we kind of went through a little bit of that with our Not All Whiskey is Bourbon. There is a class of another class that basically is similar but still different. In that meaning that the liqueurs, which are basically bourbon based, but they are reduced both in proof and they are artificially flavored. So don't get us wrong. Like if you, for instance, I know Wild Turkey, the Wild Honey, or
Wild Honey,
is Wild Turkey bourbon, but then it's been reduced in proof and it's had flavoring, I guess honey flavoring added
just like
to it.
Jim Beam, vanilla, which we used to cook with. You know, my wife, she uses still the regular vanilla. She'll use Jim Beam vanilla to cook with,
so
bake with.
That is different than what we're talking about now. What we're talking about now is true, still considered true bourbon. It's just finished, which does change the flavor, but it's not flavored.
Yeah. So these two are the same. Like I said, this is a little smaller batch. So now we're getting into finishing. So first we got the double oaked.
Now I like that. We tried that. I know on our when we did the pepper story at Silver Springs Farm was my first introduction to this.
It's one of my favorite.
And I liked it so much that I went out and got some.
One of my favorite pours ever. It's the smoothest bourbon. And you can buy a double oaked in different brands. Like Jim Beam makes a double oaked. Whereas this one is about,
oh yeah, that's just on the nose. That is just so.
This is about $40-some. You can get a Jim Beam double oak for $20. And if you're, you know, if you're used to drinking a Jim Beam white or black label, it's a whole lot different.
Now, what's the difference while we're on that? What is the difference in a black label to a white label in Jim Beam?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Oh, you don't know? Okay.
I don't know. I don't know that. Yeah, I don't. You know, there's two different ones. I'd have to look. You know, maybe when we get into the Beam family.
We actually have the Beam. If you can see that up there, that entire top right row, we kind of have these grouped sort of actually.
Yeah, except for the Oak Crow, the OCD, and the Castle Key, which goes down with the Colonel Taylor and the you know, that kind of stuff. Everything from the old tub over is Beam family.
It's Beam family. So
Beam
we have Beam family. We have all of the
Colonel
Taylor down here.
Buffalo Trace products.
Yeah, Buffalo Trace products. We have all the peppers.
Right in here.
Yeah, kind of right here.
Right here and right up front here.
Yeah, and then we have
the Rippies.
So we have the Rippies back there with Old Rippy and Wild Turkey.
Wild Turkey.
Four Roses is sort of its own thing.
Yeah. It is. It's a different family.
Yeah, and then we have the Samuels family, which we have done in the past, and we'll basically reshooting down at the actual Samuels facility. So when you look at all these labels, that's kind of what we're wanting to really get across is there is a history tied with all these.
All these.
And we could just as rightfully almost interchange all these bottles because a lot of these families are intermingled through marriage, through financial dealings, through takeovers and mergers.
No family trees, a family briar bush.
Family web.
Briar bush, just like Eastern Kentucky.
It's the Game of Thrones of bourbon. So right now we're trying the double oaked. And
now,
boy, I really like
this. This is one of my favorites.
Yeah, this is.
Now this is like 30, low 30s, about $32. This one you're talking about mid 40s. And what they do is take this one, age it in a new charred oak barrel. They take it out of that barrel and then they put it in another new charred oak barrel.
Now, is there a time limit that they put it in the first?
Well, it's about 6 years.
So okay, so it's
they're standard, you know,
so it's good bourbon to begin with. So it's not like, I mean, it could be after 2 years, it could be considered straight bourbon.
Yes. So this 6 years.
Straight plus 4 years.
Yes.
So this is good whiskey to begin with.
Yeah, this is a good drink, everyday drinker right here.
And then how long do they?
Usually less than a year. Usually when you talk about finishing them in a new barrel like that, it's usually 2 to 12 months.
Okay.
But it's less than a year.
But it's enough to impart, and again, you can sort of tell there's definitely a richer, a little bit richer color. Again, this is a little thicker bottle, but still it's a little richer color. It's definitely a richer, more bold taste and more full taste. If you really like that oak, what else am I getting there?
But it's much smoother.
Oh, it's much, the smoothness is probably the hallmark of it. Yeah.
Definitely much smoother. So secondary, brand new charred oak.
I'm definitely getting some almost butter, almost like a, almost like a butter and leather and, I don't know, it's almost hard to pick apart, but it's a really good combination. But it's very, like he said, very smooth. As you can tell, we're drinking what's called neat. For those, I was completely brand new at this. I had no idea what neat was.
Usually I put a thing of ice cube in mine.
Yeah, and I used to actually, put ice and ginger ale typically.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, that was that was sort of, before I knew.
I usually like ice. I like I'm not a big fan of room temperature drinks as much. So I like something cold or hot. So I'll usually put a little ice.
Well,
Use the ice opens it up a little more. I mean,
I was gonna say that's the only thing I've noticed. I've actually gotten since you and I've been doing this. I've kind of gotten where I actually just to be able to taste the kind of full flavor of the bourbon is to do a little neat. But one trick I've learned to really kind of open it up is this is actually not the best of water, but you want to get something that's a good drinking water. Specifically, even like I know with Barrel House, they were talking about they get their water from Rockcastle County primarily because it's got a lot of limestone deposits in there. So if you get something like a mineral water, something that has a lot that basically came out of like a mineral springs or a limestone karst, that really helps to smooth it out. And if you take a little bit of water first, and then the drink, and while you're holding the water in your mouth, boy, it really pops it out and really just kind of opens it up.
You know who teaches you that? It's Freddie Johnson.
Freddie, that's
Freddie Johnson, Buffalo Trace.
Yes, that's where I learned it. Jerry hosts a series at the Rippey Mansion called
Bourbon Sessions.
Bourbon Sessions, and one of our speakers there was Freddie from Buffalo Trace, who's the world's greatest.
Yeah, if you ever get a tour guide. If you ever get a tour at Buffalo Trace, and you're lucky enough to get him, it's all downhill from there. You'll never find a better tour guide.
He gave a great presentation that night at the Rippey Mansion, and really kind of did a few tricks. And he did where you do it with the hands and everything. I'm like, oh, this is gimmicky, but I was like, oh wait, it really actually works.
It does.
And boy, that actually changed my appreciation for bourbon that night of the flavors and the complexity of it, and just the enjoyment of it. Not really drinking it just like, oh, just guzzle it back. It's really, with bourbon, you really want to just kind of sip it.
This is a good sipping bourbon.
Yes,
you want to sip it.
Sip. Yes. Yeah, this is good for sit on your porch in the summer, watch the sun go down, listen to the crickets, and have you a couple of those. That's really nice.
Yeah.
So, but now is this considered finished? I know it's been in 2 oak or in double oak. It's been in 2 oak barrels. Is that considered a finish?
And if you look at the label, it says barrel finish select.
So I guess it is.
Yeah. So it is finished in a new, charred oak barrel.
Right. So the finish. So
it still follows all the guidelines for bourbon. Now our last one there does not.
Okay. So let me finish what we have here. I kind of hate to get rid of this. This one's so good.
Now this one is something new that they have actually only at Woodford Reserve. So you're not going to get this at the liquor store.
Oh, so you can only buy it there?
Yes, they have a lot of products. They've had a double oaked, which I love to try. I haven't got to try yet. There, which is 2, 1 barrel, and then another brand new barrel. This is actually their 5 wood.
All right. Oh, actually, we have tried this. So we tried this one as well. If you watch our episode, our last part 5, I think it was in part 5 we did this.
Part 5,
of the pepper story that we shot on location at the Silver Springs Farm, which is the location of the last James E. Pepper distillery. We tried that before. I really liked it. It's probably not my favorite, but it's different. It's different.
It is different.
I like it.
And it's a product you have to go there to buy. They have a lot of these 375s, special products that you can only buy there. Like I said, they have the double oaked. They have them, like this one finished in different, casks. Whereas this one is finished. It's called a 5 wood.
Which is because they play golf at Woodford Reserve.
That's it. Yeah, 5 wood. They don't use drivers. So this one's actually aged in a new barrel, just like this. So it's this, aged in a new barrel. Then it's taken from there, and it's aged in 2 different port wine casks, and 2 different sherry casks.
Oh wow, so it goes through actually 5 barrels.
5 barrels, that's why it's called 5 wood. Yeah, so this is your finishing. So when you talk about Angel's Envy, this is all your Kentucky straight bourbon.
So it actually touches 5 different woods.
5 different woods.
Or I'll say 5 barrels. It doesn't touch 5 different woods because one's oak. One's sherry, and
2 sherry.
2 sherry.
2 different sherry.
Okay, so it may actually be different woods.
And then 2 different port wine casks. So you're talking about it goes through 5 different barrels.
And I know when we tried this before, and we were with Alan there at Silver Springs, I had made a kind of a note when we were tasting it that it kind of left my mouth sort of dry, and then he kind of brought, it's probably the wine cask that it got in there, because wine has a lot of tannins in there, and with red wine that typically leaves you kind of with that dry, like persimmon sort of kind of thing.
So it's definitely a lot different than this.
I'm getting the same sensation of where it's almost, I get that, almost like alum. If you remember like the Tom and Jerry cartoons when Tom would try to eat Jerry and then he would put alum in his, and he would we'll do that.
It's definitely a lot different than this.
Oh, definitely.
And definitely a lot different than this.
And it's really amazing that this is so different, but it's exactly the same bourbon as this.
As that starts out as that.
Same thing. It's just
Aged in a new charred oak barrel, just like this.
Yeah.
And then this is taken and put in 4 different casks.
Yeah, and so I'm a real big fan of things like analogies and basically trying to tie things back with like real world scenarios. So this is, to me, the difference between this and this is like when I take photographs, when I take, I usually shoot mine in what's called a format called raw format, which gives me a lot of latitude in the post-production. So I can take a photo that may look like one type of photo, and through different finishing techniques, through production, I can make it look like something totally different, but it's still exactly the same photo. So I kind of like to tie that back of where, so it kind of reinforces the art as well as the science of the whole thing. And I'm kind of real big on both science and art, but I like having the underpinning of the science that they use to do this to bring something artful and kind of different. It may not be for everyone. I probably wouldn't. This wouldn't be my go-to for sure. But it is something that's kind of cool to have, like in your cabinet.
It is.
Especially if you have people over, at a gathering. They say, "Oh, I really like red wine," or something. Say, "Oh, hey, let me let you try this and see what you get on the end." So kind of give a little hint of that.
So I mean, we talk about finishing. This is a couple of different variations. Like I said, Maker's Mark has the staves. So they're putting staves in a barrel and then putting the product in that barrel.
So and that's even another finishing technique, because in this instance it actually comes out of one barrel, goes into a different barrel.
Yes.
Whereas in the Maker's, what you're talking about with the staves,
it's an empty barrel that they just emptied. They put those 46.
They actually put the wood in a barrel.
French seared staves, and then they take regular Maker's Mark and dump it into that and age it a little longer. Like I say, usually 2 to 12 months. So I mean, it's kind of nice to get a little something different.
It is. I agree. It is, and it's for me. It's nice to kind of see the process and to kind of think about. Someone had to kind of come up with that idea and kind of run it through their mind. And I know, again, kind of like to tie things back with real world situations. Like as a matter of fact, off camera there's a photo of one of my kind of early favorites I took of a distillery in Scotland, a Scotch, where they make Scotch, and they import all their barrels, all their old bourbon barrels. So they essentially are doing the same thing with their Scotch over there, where they have Scotch that on its own is actually really good, but then they age it in old bourbon barrels.
Yep.
To get that flavor. So it's not like we're doing something with this that's out of the ordinary or different. It's kind of, there's a world tradition of doing it. And people honestly have been doing it for a long time. As a matter of fact, that's probably how bourbon got to be bourbon, is because people were aging wine and sherry in charred casks, oak barrels.
Brandy.
Or brandy.
Brandy was another big thing for the French. I mean, it was aged.
Yeah. So it's not like it's something new, but it is a little bit on the newer side for traditional bourbon. And it's still, again, it's still kind of what I would consider in sort of, I wouldn't necessarily say the gray zone, but a little bit the different zone of, hey, this is flavored, but you can say, no, it's not flavored. It's just, it's finished. Because flavored, you really have to think of, again, you have to think of more of the liqueurs. Those are actually flavored. Yeah.
So we kind of leave it up to you on what you think. I mean, like I said, there's a big debate on this, but if you like it, you like it.
Yeah, and that's what I go with. Is, do I like it? Again, if you're relying on me for to recommend bourbon, you're gonna be wasting your money, because something that tastes good to me may taste like crap to you, and vice versa. So all we can tell you is kind of the history, the mystery and intrigue, and all the kind of the great stories behind the label, and I can tell you what I like and what I don't like.
Yeah. So, and don't be afraid to give it a try.
That's the key. Is don't be afraid to give it a try. It's not too much. You give it a try. If you don't like it, hey, you've at least got something to share with someone else that may like it.
May like it.
You also have to get a cool bottle and a cool story.
All right. And we hope you enjoyed that. Like I said, this is finishing. This is our pepper family we've been talking about, and we were able to incorporate it into our finishing. So,
and just for those that haven't been following along, give me a real super quick synopsis. How does Woodford Reserve play into our pepper story that we've been talking about?
Well, it was actually started by Oscar Pepper. It was the old Oscar Pepper distillery. So if you go back and look at our pepper family videos, you will see that old Oscar Pepper took this distillery from his dad, Elijah, and built the distillery that remains there today. And today it is known as Woodford Reserve.
Yeah. And if you watch it, you'll see all the history and all. There's multiple turnovers and things, but that's why we're choosing this as our both pepper tie-in and our example of finishing. So,
and just enjoy it, whether it's bourbon, where you think it's bourbon, or not. Enjoy it.
See you next time.
Why? To see if man